Got Dave Hooker on the line from Off the Hook Sports right here on YouTube, talking Tennessee football. Dave, if somebody would have told me when Joe Milton transferred from Michigan to Tennessee that he would most likely be the starting quarterback a few years later, my thought would have been, well, Tennessee's going to be winning the 5 and 6 games that it has for much of the time over the last 10 or 12 years, because Joe Milton, couldn't throw, a rock in the ocean, as they say, during his time at Michigan, lost that job very quickly and didn't impress me during some spurts of mop-up duty the last couple seasons. And then, bam, he gets thrown into action, of course, against South Carolina, has a nice game against Vandy, then really looks sharp against Clemson in the Orange Bowl. What are your thoughts about him running the offense most likely this fall?
Well, I think he's certainly going to get the first opportunity, and I think that most people seem to believe that he'll hold on to the job throughout his senior season. I'm one of the few that still think that the freshman Nico Iamaleava is going to make a significant push just because of his talent level, and I'm not won over by Joe Milton quite yet. You mentioned he came in the South Carolina debacle, the Columbia collapse, as I call it. And then the next week, he did play well against Vanderbilt, but they really throttled down the offense. And they knew with the driving rain, it was going to be tough to throw no matter what. And it was a slick field. So they were able just to win that game basically on the ground. He did complete the one deep pass. And then it's Clemson in the bowl game. I thought he showed a lot of promise in some intermediate routes, in that he was able to connect on some slants and digs and do some things that we hadn't really seen before. And really that Hendon Hooker, the quarterback who's off to the NFL, struggled with those passes. So ultimately, I think he'll have to complete the downfield ball, and his accuracy really, really is not great in that regard, the Orange Bowl withstanding. But I think there's a lot more optimism about him than there probably should be based off one performance in a Clemson game that, I don't know that Clemson really wanted to be in the Orange Bowl. They wanted to be in the college football playoff. So I'm not sold based off that one game. A lot of people are, and it seems like a natural transition to go to the freshman after this season. But you're talking to the minority here who's not completely sure it's just going to easily play out like that.
And he's certainly not going to have the receiving core, at least out of the gate, that Hendon Hooker enjoyed with Cedric Tillman moving on along with Jalen Hyatt. Although Brew McCoy, the more opportunities he gets, the more he shows that his 5-star ranking back a few years ago was certainly not a fluke. He's got the body type to play in the NFL one day as well.
No, I think Brew McCoy is probably the most talented guy out there from top to bottom. And you're talking about Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, who you mentioned are flirting with the first round. Tillman might make it there. I don't think Jalen Hyatt will, but definitely top 3 round guys. And I think Brew McCoy is a combination of speed, fluidity, strength that the other two just don't have. Now, the argument could certainly be made that this system creates great receivers, and we're going to have to wait a couple of years to see how that plays out, how these guys do in the NFL. But I think there's some truth to that. As far as who he'll throw to this year, whoever the quarterback might be, other than McCoy, it would be Ramel Keaton, who I thought was surprisingly good last year in relief of Tillman, who it didn't play probably only about a quarter of the season because of an ankle injury that kept him out for most of the year. And then he chose not to play in the Orange Bowl. So now I think that Ramel Keaton is better than advertised. I like Squirrel White in the slot position quite a bit as a guy that's returning. And as far as when we start talking about some of the transfers, I know that everybody's incredibly excited about Dante Thornton, who came from Oregon. He's a 6'4" guy, maybe 6'5", who could play that slot position. So that would give them more size than they had with Hyatt or would have with White. So I have the feeling they'll find receivers to throw to year in and year out, as long as Josh Heupel is the head coach at Tennessee.
Not that we need to go position by position, but of course the running game was extremely strong, and that's always going to be a priority for Josh Heupel, and that might be a bit of a misnomer out there among people that don't watch Tennessee on a regular basis, that just think, oh, up tempo, they throw the ball all over the place. But strong running game is where it all starts for Josh Heupel. Wanye Morris moves on to the NFL. Offensive line has maybe not been a great part of the Tennessee offense in recent years, but improving rapidly, I believe, under Josh Heupel.
You're absolutely right about the dedication to the running game, and that gets lost in all the big numbers that they throw up in the passing game. So, as you mentioned, Wanya Morris, the transfer, and then the best guy that they lost in the entire team from last year to this is Darnell Wright. I mean, he's a guy that I believe is going to be a solid first round pick. Barring injury, I think he'll have a couple of all-pro seasons. I'm incredibly high on Darnell Wright, who will be drafted as a right tackle, but in the NFL could play left tackle as he did in college in a pinch. So really like him, had a great combine. But they've got a little bit of work to do on the offensive line. I like Cooper Mays at center in the middle, but Darnell Wright's a significant loss. And you're right. If they run the ball, they're dominant. If they don't, they can be a hit or miss. So, but I think there's some upcoming depth there. But again, Wright, I think is a monstrous loss. He shut down Will Anderson of Alabama, who was on my Heisman ballot a couple of years ago. And I think Darnell Wright was probably overlooked in the beginning of the year and then quickly respected as the year went on.